The air in the courtroom was thick with an unspoken tension, a weight that pressed down on every chest and lingered in every shallow breath. Joel Carter, former soldier of the Intergalactic Peace Corps, sat at the plaintiff's table with his hands clasped tightly together. His fingers twitched, betraying the nerves he tried to suppress. The scars on his hands, faint but telling, spoke of battles fought on planets whose names he barely remembered. He was a man shaped by war, yet here he was fighting not for survival but for closure. Across the room, a creature unlike anything the court had ever seen sat silently, its elongated limbs folded neatly beneath it. Alien. That was what Joel had named the creature years ago when he first found it, wounded and whimpering in the jungles of Xiphos 9. Its sleek, iridescent skin shimmered under the artificial lights, a mesmerizing blend of colors shifting like liquid mercury. The creature's eyes, large and filled with a strange intelligence, met Joel's gaze briefly before turning away. Judge Moray cleared his throat, drawing the attention of the room. "Mr. Carter, you're aware that the Intergalactic Federation has ruled that all extraterrestrial beings found during peacekeeping missions are to be returned to their native planets. Your petition to say a final goodbye, it's highly irregular." Joel nodded, his jaw set with quiet determination. "I understand, Your Honor. But aliens saved my life more times than I can count. I just need a moment. One last moment." A murmur rippled through the crowd, reporters scribbling furiously, their lenses clicking like a swarm of mechanical insects. Joel barely noticed. He was lost in the memory of their first meeting. The way Alien had dragged him out from under the wreckage of a fallen gunship, the way it had guarded him through the long, perilous nights on Xiphos 9. The judge sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "We are a court of law, not sentiment. Nevertheless, I will hear your case." The sterile lights overhead buzzed softly, and for a moment, Joel felt as though he were back on the battlefield, the hum of drones hovering above, the smell of burnt ozone thick in the air. Alien shifted slightly in its seat, the faintest chittering sound escaping from deep within its throat, a sound that Joel had learned meant uncertainty. Beside Joel, his lawyer, Elara Finch, leaned in, her voice a soft whisper. "Are you sure you want to do this? If they think you're emotionally compromised, it might not go in your favor." Joel offered her a tight-lipped smile. "It's not about winning or losing. It's about saying goodbye." Outside the courtroom, life continued. The neon skyline of Nova Prime pulsed with the heartbeat of a city that never slept. Hovercars zipped past towering skyscrapers, and in the distance, the faint glow of distant starships taking off created a surreal dance of light. But in this sterile, emotionless chamber, Joel's world had narrowed to one singular focus: Alien. As the first witness was called, Joel braced himself. He knew the road ahead would be long and fraught with obstacles. But deep in his heart he also knew something else. This wasn't just about Alien. It was about the sacrifices made, the bonds forged in the crucible of war, and the painful act of letting go. What Joel didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the truth waiting to be uncovered would shock them all. The courtroom, bathed in artificial light and the hushed whispers of those in attendance, became a crucible where past and present intertwined, and where the line between human and alien blurred in ways no one could have predicted. The courtroom doors closed with a soft hiss, sealing Joel Carter in a space that felt suffocating despite its vastness. Rows of onlookers lined the benches, their gazes flitting between him and Alien like spectators at an otherworldly spectacle. Joel's fingers drummed a slow, steady rhythm on the polished wood of the plaintiff's table. He felt the weight of eyes on him, but none of them knew. None of them could truly understand what had led him to this moment. The prosecuting attorney, a tall, wiry woman named Ava Tarkin, rose from her seat with a predatory grace. Her voice, sharp and unyielding, filled the courtroom. "Mr. Carter, during your service on Xiphos 9, you encountered numerous alien species. What makes this particular creature so special?" Joel straightened his posture, meeting her gaze with a calm resolve. Alien isn't just a creature. It's a companion, a friend. When you're stranded in hostile territory, bonds form that defy explanation. Ava's lips curled in a slight smirk. Friendship, Mr. Carter, is not a legal argument. The Intergalactic Federation is concerned with order, not sentimentality. Alien belongs to Xiphos 9. Joel glanced at Alien, who sat quietly, its iridescent skin pulsing in slow waves of shifting colors. He couldn't explain the connection in words. How could he convey the feeling of waking up to Alien's watchful eyes after days of unconsciousness? The way it had instinctively shielded him from enemy fire, how it had learned to understand him in ways no human ever had. A memory surfaced unbidden. The dense, humid air of Xiphos 9 pressing in around him, the shrill cries of unseen predators lurking in the shadows. Joel had been wounded, his comms unit shattered, and the rescue ship was days away. He should have died there, bled out in the alien undergrowth. But Alien had stayed by his side, offering strange herbs that numbed the pain, wrapping its limbs around him to provide warmth against the freezing night. Mr. Carter? Ava's voice cut through his reverie. He blinked, drawing in a sharp breath. Alien saved my life. More than once. That's not just companionship, that's loyalty. A bond forged in fire. Judge Morey's expression remained impassive, but Joel caught the subtle shift in his posture. A sign that perhaps, just perhaps, he was listening with more than just a legal ear. Elara Finch leaned in, her whisper barely audible. Stay focused. They're looking for inconsistencies. Joel nodded slightly, his gaze never leaving Alien. He had fought countless battles, but this was different. This was personal. Meanwhile, outside the courtroom, the bustling city of Nova Prime carried on without a second thought for the strange drama unfolding within its halls. Billboards flashed with advertisements for intergalactic cruises, news tickers displayed the latest updates on distant conflicts, and civilians moved through their routines, blissfully unaware that a man and his alien companion were fighting not for survival, but for something just as vital, the right to say goodbye. Joel swallowed the lump forming in his throat. He wasn't ready for this fight to end. Not yet. The courtroom's artificial lighting flickered momentarily, casting fleeting shadows across the walls as the next witness was called. Dr. Ellen Voss, an expert in xenobiology, approached the stand with a measured stride. Her eyes, sharp and calculating behind thin-rimmed glasses, swept across the room before settling on the judge. Dr. Voss, the judge intoned, you've studied the species found on Xiphos 9 extensively. What can you tell us about this particular specimen? She folded her hands neatly in front of her, her expression unreadable. The species in question, she began, is classified under the provisional designation KX-91. It is highly intelligent, adaptable, and possesses a unique form of empathic communication that allows it to form deep, symbiotic connections with other beings. Her gaze flickered momentarily toward Joel, as if weighing his presence in her assessment. Joel shifted in his seat, feeling the weight of her words pressing against his chest. Symbiotic connections. He had always known there was something deeper at play, something beyond mere survival instinct. Alien had been more than a protector. It had been a part of him, sensing his fears and responding in ways that defied logic. Is it dangerous? The prosecuting attorney, Ava Tarkin, asked, her voice laced with skepticism. Dr. Voss adjusted her glasses, considering her answer. Like any intelligent being, it is capable of defending itself when threatened. However, our observations indicate that its primary instinct is one of cooperation rather than aggression. Ava took a slow step forward, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Would you say its bond with Mr. Carter is unnatural? Dr. Voss's lips pressed into a thin line. On the contrary. The bond between them appears to be mutually beneficial. Alien's presence likely aided in Mr. Carter's physical and psychological survival in hostile conditions. Joel clenched his jaw, flashes of memory flooding his mind. The cold nights huddled together for warmth, the unspoken understanding in the chaos of battle. The bond they shared was something no one here could truly comprehend. And yet, Ava continued, isn't it true that the Federation has strict policies against unauthorized interspecies interactions of this nature? A tense silence hung in the air before Dr. Voss finally nodded. Yes, those policies exist to protect both humans and extraterrestrial species from unintended consequences. However, in exceptional cases like this, context matters. Joel exhaled slowly, his fingers curling into a fist beneath the table. He could see the cracks forming in their arguments, the glimmers of understanding from those who dared to look beyond rigid regulations. Outside the courtroom, the storm that had been brewing all afternoon finally broke. Rain lashed against the windows in chaotic patterns, mirroring the storm of emotions within. Joel couldn't shake the feeling that something was shifting, that the truth was beginning to take shape in ways even he hadn't expected. And yet, there were still questions unanswered. Secrets buried beneath the surface, waiting to rise. The rain drummed against the courthouse windows, a rhythmic reminder of the passage of time. Inside, the air was thick with anticipation as the defense called their next witness, Lieutenant Adrian Park, one of Joel's former comrades from Xiphos 9. Dressed in his crisp Federation uniform, Park walked with the stiff gait of a man carrying the weight of too many memories. Taking the stand, Park offered a curt nod to Joel before turning to face the judge. Your Honor, I served alongside Mr. Carter for 3 years on Xiphos 9. I can personally attest to the circumstances surrounding his relationship with Alien. Ilara Finch, Joel's attorney, approached with a confident stride. Lieutenant Park, in your own words, what was your impression of Alien? Park's eyes softened for a moment, a flicker of something resembling nostalgia crossing his face. Alien wasn't just some creature Joel picked up. It was different. It understood things, reacted to threats before we even registered them. There were times we thought we were done for, but Alien always found a way. It saved more than just Joel. If I'm being honest, it saved us all. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Ava Tarkin, ever the skeptic, leaned forward from her seat. Lieutenant Park, would you say that Mr. Carter's attachment to this creature clouded his judgment in any way? Park straightened, his expression hardening. Absolutely not. If anything, Alien made us better soldiers. We relied on it and it never let us down. Joel watched the exchange in silence, his heart pounding in his chest. Hearing Park speak so candidly brought a wave of relief, but it also stirred old wounds, memories of firefights in the dense alien jungles, of Alien appearing out of the darkness to guide them to safety. The judge cleared his throat. Lieutenant, are you suggesting that this creature has some form of advanced intelligence? Park hesitated before responding. Intelligence? Sure. But it's more than that. Alien connects with people in a way that's hard to explain. It's like it knows what you're feeling, what you're thinking. And it never once showed hostility unless it was protecting us. Ilara nodded, seizing the moment. Would you say that Alien's presence provided psychological support to the unit? Without a doubt, Park replied, his voice firm. War takes a toll and we all found comfort in Alien. Losing it would be like losing a piece of ourselves. Joel could see the judge weighing the testimony, tapping his fingers against the desk in thought. But he could also sense the lingering resistance in the room, the doubt, the fear of what Alien represented. Beyond the courtroom doors, the storm raged on, mirroring the tension inside. As Park stepped down from the stand, Joel knew they were inching closer to the truth. Yet deep inside, an unsettling question gnawed at him. Was the court ready to accept it? The courtroom's silence stretched thin, punctuated only by the rhythmic ticking of the wall chrono. Joel's pulse matched its tempo as the defense called their next witness. Dr. Leora Emmett, a Federation-appointed psychologist specializing in human-alien interactions, stepped onto the stand with composed precision. She adjusted her neatly pressed uniform, scanning the gathered crowd with a practiced, unreadable gaze before settling her attention on Ilara Finch. "Dr. Emmett," Ilara began, her voice unwavering, "you've evaluated Mr. Carter extensively. What insights can you share regarding his mental state in relation to Alien?" Dr. Emmett laced her fingers together, her tone clinical yet sympathetic. "Mr. Carter exhibits a profound emotional attachment to Alien, rooted in shared trauma and survival. This bond is not unusual among soldiers deployed in extreme conditions. However, the depth of his connection suggests an element beyond typical psychological dependence." Ava Tarkin leaned forward, her pen poised above a legal pad. "Are you implying Mr. Carter's perception of Alien is exaggerated? Perhaps even delusional?" Dr. Emmett shook her head firmly. "Not at all. What we have here is a rare case of interspecies co-regulation. Alien provided Mr. Carter with emotional stability and practical support during his time on Zyphos 9. Removing it from his life abruptly could have significant psychological repercussions." Joel exhaled slowly, his grip tightening around the edge of the table. He'd always known Alien was more than just a creature. It was his anchor in the void of war. The judge studied Dr. Emmett carefully. "Are you saying that Alien should remain with Mr. Carter for his well-being?" "I am saying," Dr. Emmett replied, "that their bond should not be dismissed without due consideration of its impact on both parties. The Federation must weigh the psychological welfare of its veterans alongside existing policy." Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Ava stood, eyes gleaming with skepticism. "Dr. Emmett, isn't it true that such attachments could pose security risks? Given Alien's unknown origins, its presence among humans could be dangerous." Dr. Emmett arched a brow. "Alien has demonstrated no hostility beyond self-defense. Its behavior aligns with cooperative species, not predatory ones. Moreover, severing their connection could provoke unpredictable emotional responses from Mr. Carter himself." Joel watched Ava scribble something on her notepad, her lips pressing into a thin line. He knew she wasn't convinced. The Federation rarely trusted what it couldn't fully understand. Outside the courthouse, the storm had subsided, leaving the streets slick and gleaming under the city's artificial glow. It was as if the world outside had found its resolution, but within these walls, the battle raged on. As Dr. Emmett stepped down, Joel braced himself for what lay ahead. He wasn't sure whether the truth would be enough, but he was prepared to fight for it. The court clerk announced the next witness with a practiced monotone, and Colonel Darius Wolfe took the stand. His uniform, adorned with commendations, bore the weight of years spent navigating bureaucratic and battlefield complexities alike. The creases on his face told stories that no official report ever could. Ilara Finch rose, her gaze locked on the seasoned officer. "Colonel Wolfe, you oversaw operations on Zyphos 9. Can you provide context on Mr. Carter's contributions during his deployment?" Wolfe's voice was a low rumble, steady and measured. "Carter was one of our best. Tactical, resourceful, and dedicated. When we were backed into a corner, he found solutions. And sometimes those solutions came in unexpected forms." A ripple of murmurs echoed through the courtroom. Ava Tarkin, ever watchful, leaned forward. "Colonel, you're referring to his relationship with Alien, I presume?" Wolfe nodded. "Yes, ma'am. Alien was more than just a presence in our operations. It was an asset. Carter understood that before anyone else did. We wouldn't have lasted half as long without it." "An asset," Ava repeated, a predatory gleam in her eyes. "Are you suggesting the Federation should sanction relationships with unidentified extraterrestrial entities?" Wolfe's jaw tightened. "I'm saying we need to look at the results, not just the regulations. Carter and Alien had a partnership that kept our people alive." Joel could feel his pulse quicken. The colonel was walking a fine line, defending their bond without outright defying protocol. Ilara pressed on. "Colonel Wolfe, in your professional opinion, does Alien pose any threat to Federation security?" Wolf took a moment before responding, choosing his words carefully. No. If it did, we'd have known by now. Alien had opportunities to harm us, and it never did. Instead, it protected us, sometimes at great cost to itself. Judge Moray leaned back in his chair, hands steepled. Colonel, if the court were to consider an exception in this case, do you believe it would set a dangerous precedent? Wolf sighed, the weight of command evident in his posture. Every case should be judged on its own merits, Your Honor. This is not just about policy. It's about recognizing what works in the field. Outside, the city's hum continued uninterrupted, oblivious to the slow tectonic shifts occurring within the courtroom. Joel allowed himself a sliver of hope, but the battle was far from over. He could see the doubt lingering in the judge's eyes, the skepticism woven into Ava's every word. As Wolf stepped down, Joel glanced at Alien, whose iridescent form shimmered faintly. It was more than just evidence. It was proof that some connections transcend boundaries, if only the court could see it. The courtroom air grew heavier as Ava Tarkin approached the witness stand once more, her sharp gaze settling on Alara Finch with a calculated precision. Your Honor, she began, addressing Judge Moray with an air of restrained confidence, before we proceed further, I would like to call upon a special witness, one who offers an alternate perspective to the narrative we've heard thus far. Joel's stomach nodded as a tall figure emerged from the gallery. Commander Elias Stroud, his former superior officer, strode to the stand with an air of authority that demanded attention. The scars on his face, remnants of battles long past, added weight to his presence. Alara rose, cautious but composed. Commander Stroud, you served alongside Mr. Carter during the early months on Xiphos 9. What can you tell us about his relationship with Alien? Stroud leaned forward, his eyes locked on Joel. Carter always had an affinity for unconventional methods. When he first brought Alien into our unit, there was skepticism. Some of us thought it was a liability. He paused, letting the words hang in the air like a specter of doubt. But over time it proved useful, until it didn't. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Joel's fists clenched under the table. Commander, Ava interjected smoothly, are you saying there were incidents where Alien posed a threat? Stroud nodded slowly. There were moments of unpredictability. Times when it acted outside of our expectations, and in a war zone, that's a risk we couldn't always afford. Carter grew too dependent on it. Some might say, emotionally compromised. Joel shot Alara a pleading glance, but she remained impassive, waiting for the right moment to strike. And yet, Commander Stroud, Alara countered, your official reports never indicated Alien as a danger. Why is that? Stroud shifted uncomfortably, the flicker of an internal battle evident. Because Carter made sure it never got to that point. He managed it well, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a ticking time bomb. Outside, the rain resumed, tapping against the windows in uneven rhythms. Joel felt the weight of Stroud's words pressing down, old doubts clawing their way to the surface. Alien remained motionless beside him, its bioluminescent patterns dimming slightly. Judge Moray folded his hands, deep in thought. This court must consider all risks before making a ruling. Commander, do you believe Carter's bond with Alien compromised his judgment in critical situations? Stroud hesitated. I believe his loyalty to it sometimes outweighed his duty to the mission. And that, Your Honor, is dangerous. Alara stood, her expression resolute. With all due respect, Your Honor, loyalty is not a crime. The battle lines had been drawn anew, and Joel could see the uncertainty settling into the judge's face. He knew the road ahead had just become even more uncertain. The courtroom was charged with tension, each breath held in anticipation as Joel Carter stood, his heart hammering against his ribs. Judge Moray's stern gaze swept across the room, his fingers steepled in contemplation. The weight of the moment pressed down on everyone present, none more than Joel and Alien, who stood side by side, a silent testament to their bond. Ilara Finch took a measured step forward, her voice steady yet impassioned. Your Honor, what we have seen here today is not just a case of a man and his companion. It is a question of what defines loyalty, trust, and companionship beyond the boundaries of species. Alien has proven time and again that it is not a threat, but a guardian. Ava Tarkin, undeterred, rose to deliver her final argument. Your Honor, while we recognize the emotional weight of this case, we cannot ignore the potential risks. The Federation must be cautious in its decisions regarding unidentified extraterrestrial life. We must think beyond sentiment and consider the broader implications. The judge's gavel tapped lightly against the bench, calling for silence. He turned his eyes to Joel. Mr. Carter, do you have anything you wish to say before I render my judgment? Joel swallowed hard, stepping forward. Your Honor. Alien isn't just some creature I found on Xiphos 9. It saved my life. It saved all our lives. I don't expect everyone to understand the connection we share, but I know that without it, I wouldn't be standing here today. We've been through hell together, and I can't walk away from that. His voice faltered, but his resolve did not. I won't. The judge's expression was inscrutable as he sat back, exhaling slowly. Minutes felt like hours before he finally spoke. In the matter of Joel Carter and Alien, this court recognizes the unique circumstances presented. While concerns remain, it is clear that Alien has demonstrated loyalty and non-hostility beyond reasonable doubt. Therefore, it is the ruling of this court that Alien be granted special companionship status under Federation law, contingent upon periodic evaluations. A collective exhale rippled through the courtroom, and Joel felt his knees threaten to buckle. He turned to Ilara, who offered a rare smile. Alien, sensing the shift, let out a low melodic hum that resonated through Joel's chest. Ava Tarkin's expression remained neutral, though her lips pressed into a thin line. This isn't over, she murmured under her breath as she gathered her papers and exited the courtroom. Outside, the storm had finally passed and sunlight spilled through the grand windows. Joel stepped into the open air, feeling the warmth on his skin. Alien trailed beside him, its iridescent form reflecting the light in a cascade of colors. So, Joel said with a grin ruffling the creature's smooth hide. Looks like we're sticking together after all. Alien blinked up at him, and for the first time in a long while, Joel felt like he was truly home.